know that.
How are you, sir?
That was her brother that got killed. Him and his girl.
I'm thrilled that y'all got to experience all that. So let's go ahead and citizen comments
That was sad.
after open and close the public hearing. But before we do the spotlights. Okay.
Real sad.
There's a gavel here somewhere. I now call this meeting of the Bryan Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We welcome everyone here tonight. It's great to see so many of you in the boardroom. Citizens may make comments about topics relevant to district business. Topics will be limited to 3 minutes, and comments concerning specific student or personnel will be heard in closed session. The agenda's a little odd tonight because we do have a public hearing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open the public hearing and then close the public hearing, and then we'll do some of our business, and then we'll come back to public hearing after our spotlights. I now call this public hearing of the Bryan Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members are present, that this public hearing has been duly called, and that notice of this hearing has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, excuse me, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will recess the public hearing to allow time for our citizen comments and our spotlight. The time is now 6:04 p.m. I will now call to order the regular meeting of the Bryan Independent School District. We also have a quorum of board members present, and this meeting has been called in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Chapter 551. I've already given the instructions about public comment. We ask that you now turn off all your electronic devices, and we will move to our Pledge of Allegiance. So today we have both the American and the Texas Pledge flags recited by Sam Rayburn Intermediate. So we welcome them to come lead us in our pledges.
We want to thank you for having our Rayburn Raiders here to lead you guys in our pledges. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor the
Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Before we sit down, we would like to take the opportunity just to introduce ourselves to the board. So we'll go just down the line and they'll do classroom and what grade.
My name is Layla San Miguel, and I am in 6th grade.
My name is Jace Robinson, and I'm in 5th grade.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosary Burgos, and I am in 6th grade.
My name is Lucy Ladwig, and I'm in 6th grade.
My name is Destiny Rodriguez, and I'm in 6th grade. My name is Dylan DeWeese, and I'm in 6th grade.
My name is Caleb Drager, and I am in 6th grade.
My name is Ari Garza. I'm in 6th grade.
And we see your student ambassador shirts, and we just want to thank you all for being leaders at your school. So thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for doing such a wonderful job leading us today.
Yay. Yeah,
parents want to take pictures,
Put some wheels on that thing.
hold on. Wait. One more. She's telling you to scoot in.
As they get closer.
Yay.
Great job.
Thank
Okay, we have one citizen's comment today, so once we get the podium back in order, we will welcome Cy Harbottle to talk. It's not an item that's on our agenda, but we welcome you to come up and talk to us about running school bus signs. You will have 3 minutes. Is Cy here?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. And hang on, let me get a timer out.
Good evening, board members. My name is Cy Harbottle. I live at 2611 Cabot Avenue. And as you all know, Cabot Avenue and South College is going through some heavy construction right now. My house intersects with Bizzle, so the traffic from Bizzle, they're cutting over to Bizzle to avoid South College because it's closed down. But the issue here is not stopping at school bus stop signs. So we've had 8 days of school, and no less than 15 times where I'm sitting out with my children in the morning and then picking them up at night, they just buzz through the extended stop sign. So I've called the police department 3 or 4 times. Officer Kilgore did come out one and a half days, actually 1 day, and nothing happened at that particular time. But we got to thinking, maybe it's not, they just don't know what is in stake here. And what's in stake is a really hefty fine. And Officer Kilgore said if they get stopped twice, the fine is just outrageous. So I'm in front of the school board today asking if somebody from the school board, or they can assign somebody from the school board to do some sort of media press release and be aware and let the citizens know how important it is to stop for the children's safety, but what the consequences are. Because I was out there one time and the lady was just cruising right through the extended stop sign. I put my hand out in the middle of the road. She kept going. I had to go to the side of the road, and she just rolled down her window and gave me a nice gesture. But I just don't think they are aware of what's going on and the responsibility that, if one of my children got hit, I don't know. I don't know how I can handle that. So maybe we need to get in front of the media and explain to the general public what's going on or what the consequences is. It's like I tell my children, anything that you do has consequences, okay? So that's what I'm asking the board to do. I don't know what else to do at this point, but it just continues to happen 15 times in 8 days. That's uncalled for. I don't know what to do. So with your help, I ask any kind of help, and I will do whatever I can too. Thank you for listening, board.
Can I ask a quick question, just for clarification? Are you talking about school zones, or are you talking about when the bus has their stop sign?
I am talking about when the bus is stopped,
Okay.
has its arm out, the stop sign and it's blinking, they're still going right through
Sure.
it.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
Bissell is a small street anyway, with no curves and gutters. Bissell is a small street anyway with no curves and gutters, so it's not.
And I don't mind the traffic, it's just when they don't have the common sense to stop at a bus stop, when the arm is extended and says stop, and kids are getting on and off.
Thank you so much. Yes, we will
Thanks,
figure out how to do a PSA, and we'll get our communications team to assist us. Thank you. All right. We will now proceed with our spotlight items. We are going to start with first an Essential 8 E8 Partner Award. And our first one goes to Truist Bank. This is going to be presented by our Executive Directors of School Leadership, Crystal Goodman, Linda Montoya, and Brian Merrill. And I also see our wonderful lead counselor.
Hi. Good evening, and thanks for letting me do this tonight. Donna Willett, Director of Counseling Services, and I also have the honor of being the Essential Aid Coordinator for the district. The Essential Aid has been around in our district with students for a number of years, and last year we started a program to acknowledge Brazos Valley churches, nonprofits, and local businesses that support Bryan ISD and model that Essential Aid. Sharing the relevance and living the essential aid in the community is essential to our students being able to see that and then taking what we're doing in the classroom and understanding what that means. So it's with great joy I'd like to present 2 awards tonight. The first one does go to Truist Bank and Mr. Tim Pavlis.
I want to go down? Yeah. Who went through Bryan schools?
Oh, wow. Is that enough? Are we going to go down?
Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more camera. 1, 2, 3. Back up there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank y'all.
Yes. And next, we would like to present an award to the Bryan ISD Education Foundation. I know we have a number of members of their executive board today, and I know Dr. Holland wanted to say something.
Yeah, I don't know who I'm talking to. This is weird. Can I turn her? I know, but this is just, I'm going to turn it around. Yay, there we go. Howdy. Yay. We want to take an opportunity just to recognize our members of the Bryan ISD Education Foundation who absolutely stepped it up an amazing notch this year. And as someone who got to attend the event on Saturday, we didn't really know what to expect, but it was absolutely amazing, and we are thrilled at everything that you all have done. I ran into Kelly at church on Sunday, and she was telling me where she thought the numbers might be, and it is absolutely amazing that you have done all of this for the benefit of our teachers and our students in our district. So we welcome you all to the front so that we can publicly acknowledge as a board the work of this amazing team. So thank you, Pam. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for everything that you all have done. And I want the whole board, not just me. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take a couple here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And last one. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank y'all very much.
Yeah, I think we also need to add, Steve Warner was absolutely freaking amazing. So what a treat that was as someone who grew up listening to that music, and he was so wonderful in person. So thank you for all the work that went into that. Okay, I said this meeting would be a little odd, and so now we're going to recess the regular meeting to convene the public hearing. The time is now 6:16 p.m. And so for our public hearing, we have the 2023-2024 budget and 2023 tax rate. This will be presented by our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Kevin Besaw. So welcome, Kevin. And this is a public hearing, which means that people will be able to ask questions if they have them after Kevin does his presentation.
Clay have?
Mr. Besaw. I would throw it, but I don't trust you. You don't trust him or you?
I'm sure it'd be right on target, but yeah. Yes, thank you, Board. So tonight is the night culmination of a lot of hard work and piecing things together and moving forward. It's been a challenging year, to say the least, to try to put budget and set a tax rate and do all those kind of things with all the uncertainty that's coming out of Austin. As always, we try to keep our board goals, the district goals in mind as we go through this and make sure that we're aligning the things that we're doing and the spending the funds on items that that go towards those areas. This is our budget timeline. Of course, you can see we started, back in April. Actually started before that with budget meetings and things, but have come through. And tonight, of course, August 21 is our that we'll ask the board to set the hearing, set the budget, and then adopt the tax rate. Just a reminder, we've talked about some of these things several times, but I don't want to just skip over them. Not everybody, I'm sure, watches our meetings from start to finish every time. So just to go back, and unassigned fund balance as of August 31, 22. So that was last year, was almost $41 million, equal to about 90 days of our operating expenditures. Policy recommends that we maintain 60 to 90 days, and that's within that. Of course, we're right at the top of that range. Also, that's an indicator on the first rating, and I don't have it in here yet, but I mentioned we did receive our preliminary first rating, which is the financial integrity rating of Texas, given to all school districts, and we received our preliminary rating last week. And we, again, got an A. We've done that every year that the rating has been in place since the early 2000s, I believe. And this year we actually scored a 100, so we're pretty excited about that. Oh, I don't want to skip. We have, and then the other thing that we have that is a little unique right now, we have the ESSER funds that can be transferred from the general fund as indirect costs as we close out those. The ESSER 2 will be coming up with about $3 million, and then ESSER 3 is September of 2024. That's about $6.8 million. And then the things that we look at to influence the budget, of course, recruiting and retention is always big. We struggle to pay our teachers and staff, good wages, and want to make sure that we are providing the best teachers and people in classrooms that we can. We have available, of course, federal funding. The ESSER is ending in September of 24, as I mentioned, so that's going to be a challenge we're going to look at this year as we go through. Inflation is, on everybody's mind. We built in an estimated 5% increase on our non-payroll categories. The opening of Sadberry Intermediate, of course, that has some additional costs. The teachers and things were separated from the other intermediates, but there is some additional with the new building as far as facilities and some staff with principal, assistant principal, and those kind of things. Then, of course, that provides us a new instructional facility allotment, which is an allotment that the state allows for new facilities. It can be up to $1,000 per ADA. So we have 315 students in there. We could be in line for 3 to 315,000. It is limited, though. The state sets a total on that, and depending on how many districts apply for that and how many dollars that are requested, that could be limited, and then it'd be paid out pro rata. Some of the assumptions that we've used, estimates to prepare the budget this year, we held student enrollment growth and, of course, attendance as well on that at no change from the prior year. We're going to talk a little bit later about the things that we're going to work on to try to improve the attendance, and those are already in place. Property value growth, about 18% this year across all the properties in Bryan ISD. That's the second year in a row that they've grown a lot. Maintenance and operations tax rate was set, of course, by the state at 0.6792 per $100 evaluation, and then the debt service rate will be 0.27. We use a collection rate on the property taxes of 99%. And this is a proposed budget summary. In the general fund, revenue of about $165,753,000. Expenditures $170,389,000. Would be a net deficit budget of $4.6 million this year. Debt service would be balanced $35,762,000, and food service would be balanced at $12,250,000.
Kevin, I guess.
Yes, sir.
I know this is a public hearing, but somewhere, I guess, just we need to make it real clear that we're getting an 18% increase in property values, but it's not like we're going to get the benefit of 18% in property value, increase in property value. So are you going to kind of clarify that or make that clear how that works?
Yeah, we'll go through the tax rate, how it's gone down, and then I can talk about. Actually, just one comment. This is when we get to the tax rate part. Set the rate. If the rate that we set raises more tax revenue than it did the prior year, we have to have special language on there, even if the rate goes down. This will be the first year, I think, since I've been the CFO, so the first time in 5 or 6 years that we will not have to have that language, because the revenue that the district receives from property taxes this year will be less than it was last year. More will be made up by the state and to compensate that. But so that's, yeah, even though the values went up by that much because of the compression of the tax rate, actually the property taxes that will be paid for the Bryan ISD part at least will be less than last year. Yes, sir. And some of the things that were included in the general fund expenditures, of course, there's increases for the property and casualty insurance. That market is extremely tight and difficult right now. Increases for salary and stipends for hard-to-fill positions. Increases for additional school resource officer with the opening of Sadberry. We've added salary and general rate increases, which we passed at the last board meeting, raising starting salaries for teachers to $51,000, and then 2% for all other staff across the board. And then built in, as I said before, a general inflation 5% on the non-payroll categories. And some of the things we'll do, we always start right as of the time this budget's passed to try to work to address that shortfall. We put increased efforts towards attendance, which that is one thing that can help. Investment earnings, we'll be watching. Short-term rates are really high right now. We'll be watching as they fall off, as they most likely will, to start getting into longer term and maintain those investment earnings high. And then just other things, a focused marketing campaign on student enrollment and attendance and energy conservation. And then, of course, legislation. We're all still waiting. We believe sometime in September or October, they're going to meet again and discuss all things school finance. So we're hopeful that there will be something come out good for that for public education. And this is a little on the tax rate. You can see since 2016-17 what has happened with the property tax rate for the school district, and it's gone down 21 cents from 16-17 to last year, and then it's scheduled to drop another 19 cents this year. So that drop in rate, even though the values have gone up, will still produce less revenue for the district. And then in the debt service side, the property tax rate will still be requested at 0.27 per 100,000 evaluation and raise about 35,587,000 for revenue. And then the principal and interest due on those will be the same amount. We will have an item later tonight to talk about that. We did sell the final remainder of those bonds, or had them bid out today. So that adds into that amount. And then a summary of the recommendations. So we would adopt a balanced food service budget as stated before. The general fund budget tax rate would be set at 0.6792 for revenue, and adopt a debt service rate of 0.27, and you can see the difference from last year to this year on that. And as I said, the rate this year has gone down 19 cents from the prior year. And of course, y'all have the budget book, which has a lot more information and detailed information in there that we can get into when we get on the first item and to adopt the budget, but just for this purpose. Questions on that?
Any questions?
Congratulations with that 100% rating. Don't tell TEA. They'll find a way to jerk it out from under you by next year. So we'll keep it just our little secret.
Well, yeah, and even if we wanted to, we can't do that, because as soon as it becomes final, then we have, I think, 60 days to hold another public hearing and discuss that and put that out. But that's a good thing, so we'll do that gladly when it comes time.
Any other questions from the board or from the public? This is a public hearing. Okay. All right, there being no further comment or questions, let the record show that a public hearing adjourned at 6:29 p.m. The board will now reconvene the regular meeting at 6:29 p.m. And we will start with our superintendent update.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ibarra. We need two of these. It's always a pleasure to talk about the great things happening in Bryan ISD. And as Mr. Clay Falls pulls up the slide deck, just a couple of things. I can tell you that the start of school has started extremely well for Bryan ISD. We couldn't be more pleased, especially because this year we've expressed our desire to deepen, to enhance, to increase the partnerships and the engagement with families in particular and our community at large. And I can tell from what's happened before school and since school has started, we are off to a great start with that. Starting with convocation. We had such high energy this year. We tried to shine the light on our students as much as possible. That is Ruthie Waller with that megaphone and her original cheerleading sweater from Bryan High School when she was a Viking. But you can see the photos speak a 1,000 words. We had not only all of our staff there, almost 3,000 employees, lots and lots of students literally on the stage with a spotlight, and many of our community members. We had faith-based leaders, we had elected officials, we had people who serve on our committees and councils, and just community at large. Again, the energy was electric, and this set the tone for a really great start of the school year. And right on the heels of that, we literally launched our school year with a bang. Those are fireworks that you see with our community pep rally. We could not be more pleased with the turnout. It was literally standing room only all along the visitor side, the home side of the stadium. Again, we showcased so many different student groups, sponsors, coaches, directors, principals, just a huge turnout. Board members, thank you for coming and for the support, community at large, and again, family. We felt like this was the epitome of a family community engagement, launching our school year, again, with a big bang with the fireworks. Leading right into back to school. Before we even opened our doors, we had record numbers of attendance for all of our Meet the Teacher events, back to school, fish camps, and lots of scheduled pickups. The parents showed up in full force. Moving on, we've already mentioned this earlier when we spotlighted our Bryan ISD Education Foundation. We held the first annual hometown reunion on Saturday night, and Many of you were there, and all I can say, it was an incredible event, bigger and better than we ever imagined. We don't have all the total numbers in, but we believe we sold out at 652 tickets, and they're already planning for next year. The board members for the foundation said they've already got ideas to increase the number and make it bigger and better than it was. But the reason we think it was so special was, again, this was about our community. We invited students, they participated. We had so many family members there, and since it was a reunion, former Bryan ISD graduates were there and just in full force. The headliner was Steve Werner, who was just fabulous. So just a couple of photos, again, to tell the story that we had elected officials, community, again, partnering with the district and the Education Foundation was just a tremendous success. And one final one, in closing, just thank you to our school board of trustees for all of you who could attend that night. I think we sent a big, loud, clear message that we are all in, and that families and communities, the school district, our foundation, elected members of our community, united that night and sent a powerful message to everyone that Bryan ISD is a force to be reckoned with. So we could not be more proud. So thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. Did you read what Steve Werner said in his kind of private meeting after he sang about teachers?
Yes.
And how valuable education is, and that teachers are the main, the backbone of everything?
Yes.
Yes, that was
He said all the right things, for sure. It was wonderful.
All right, we do have a couple of standing committee updates. We will start with teaching and learning. An update from Ms. Felicia Benford.
Good evening. So we met Dr. Harlan, myself, and Ms. Waller with the team on August the 9th. So a lot of the things that we discussed are on the agenda tonight, so we'll just wait and hear from our staff on that. But the one thing that I wanted to say is that we did talk about the accountability update, and that's something that's very important and was new to us, and Dr. Ibarra is going to present on that. But the one thing that I did want to mention is that the spring field testing, that TEA notified us that many of our students will be taking an additional reading, language, arts, STAR, and English 1 and 2 field tests in February. And TEA recommends scheduling 2 to 3 hours for that testing. But we talked about EIC local updates, upcoming purchases, and TIA updates, and we're going to be hearing from Dr. Ibarra in just a minute on those items as they're placed on our agenda tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Benford. And next is our Finance Committee. We'll hear an update from Mr. McCall.
And I must admit, I'm glad that we have the notes, because August 11th feels like
Long time ago.
months and months ago.
10 days.
So much has happened in the last 10 days. But Mr. Stasny, Dr. Davis, and I met with the staff again on August 11th. We discussed items ranging from an update from Fitch credit reporting, getting ready for the anticipation of selling the remaining $55 million in bonds from the 21 bond referendum. The district received AA and ratings based on financial conditions and lookout. These are strong ratings, the same as those received in prior years. So that was an important update. Property, casualty, and automobile insurance. I don't think any of us was surprised that we're looking at about a 33% increase in premium, just based off of it. And a huge chunk of that from a property standpoint is just the fact that we're opening up a brand new intermediate school. And so we have a whole new school going on to the insurance role. We continue to see a tightening in the market with companies having just really declining to write policies and pulling out of some states, including California, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas, citing the losses related to climate-related disasters. And then budget development and budget amendment, which we've looked at and talked about this evening and continue to look at later in the meeting. To discuss Chapter 313 and just there's a name change on the filings with the Texas Controller's Office, and all other aspects of the agreement remain unchanged on one of our Chapter 313 meetings. And then as Mr. Besaw discussed, even though property values have gone up, we're going to see a reduction in the cap, but in deduction in the overall value of property taxes coming into the district. But that increase also has another, has kind of a double-edged sword. So not only is the value pushed down by the state, but we also are encroaching, getting close to being back into a recapturing state for the funding. And although we're not subject to recapture at this time, still the property wealth per weighted average daily attendance, or WADA, puts us on the range where the district has to complete some additional filings with TEA. So.
Thank you, Mr. McCall.
I want to add that all three of us, of the committee members, were participating, but I was in upstate New York, and Dr. Davis was where, the Bahamas or somewhere, is that right? And I don't know where you were, Mark.
I was in my office, but yeah.
It was in the low 70s where I was. I was outside and kind of shivering a little bit.
Now last week I was in Georgia. I think that's why this feels like it's visiting my son. But
We were resentful that you were in the 70-degree.
Yeah.
Hey, but I was participating, okay? So. Yeah. Anyway, it was good that we could all still meet.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the benefits of Zoom. Participate where you are. So thank you for those updates from our standing committees. We have 2 information items this evening. We will start with the STAR redesign and accountability refresh update. I know we've heard about this several times, but as information becomes available, we want to keep not just our board, but our public informed. So thank you, Dr. Ibarra.
Thank you, Dr. Harlan. We are just going to take a brief moment to go over some new information, also recap some information that's been previously shared, because it does seem to shift from month to month with the new things that we get from the Texas Education Agency. New and good, though, is that we have the results now for grades 3 through 8. We are no longer in a zone of uncertainty. We know what those cut points are projected to be. And we received them last week. Parents received an email with a unique ID where they could look at their students' results in that system, so they could get more detailed information about their own children. But again, if there's any trouble for a parent and how to access that, we're happy to help with it. But there are some things that still aren't quite set from the state. I'll fast forward to that in just a minute, but we don't have an accountability manual still for last year. So let's just do a quick high-level recap of what happened and what transpired last year. The structure of the assessment was altered for STAR and for EOCs, and by that I mean there are new question types, technology-enhanced question types, on every test across all grades and subjects. It's a very good thing, but it's a very new thing. And so our students and our teachers were adjusting to that for this first year of trying it out. Kids tried it out for the first time on their spring assessments. And it is the way that many assessments are going. This was just their first moment to try it. Along with that, the content was adjusted for all grades and subjects. And by that, it's simply the inclusion of writing in what is expected on each of those STAR assessments. They call them short constructed responses. It's a short writing response, right? And then for English language arts on every grade, not just 4 and 7 and English 1 and English 2, on every grade, there's also an extended constructed response, a longer essay. So that is new and different for all of the grades and all of the subjects. We have new indicators that are a part of the accountability system. This was the year they were projected to redo the accountability system, or I should say last year was the year they were to redo the accountability system and have it in place for several years. So there are new indicators in that system that were not previously present. There are new cut points, and again, we now have those cut points for what constitutes approaches, meets, and masters on those STAR and EOC assessments. As of last Wednesday, we know what those are. And then the methodology. In terms of the accountability rating for a school system, those of us who've been in education for a while, we get different versions of what ratings are. There's been everything from exemplary to recognized and now letter grades. They typically, when there's a big change to an accountability system, they'll change the names of what the new version of really did a great job, really still working on it, and everywhere in between. Letter grades are staying, but they are not communicating the same thing as they did last year. And I think that's one of the big things to understand, that while the letter grades have maintained, everything under the surface of that, all of the methodology has changed, very much so for a district as compared to a campus, which we've talked about previously, with each campus being a proportion of the district rating instead. So much so that the Texas Education Agency, and it's up there in red again, has stated, the commissioners created a video for board members to help explain that it's possible for a campus with an A 2 years ago now to improve last year and still receive a B. So that's how many different components moved from the 21 to the 22 school year. So we don't really want to draw comparisons in terms of performance by grade or subject or even ratings at all, because they're not the same thing. So in keeping with that, yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that there was not a manual, there was not.
Yes.
That came to the parents, correct? What did not having a 8th grader on down in the district, I haven't seen this.
From the parent perspective?
Yeah, what did the parents get to understand all this if they haven't been listening to everything we've been saying for 3 months?
So the state isn't really releasing anything about the accountability system yet to parents, but in terms of what your own child, for example, I have 2 children still in the system. 1 is a graduate, 2 are still in, and they took their EOCs this past spring, and EOC scores, came back a little bit sooner, so we had those a little earlier. As a parent, TEA has moved to an online portal for parents. That's the way in which parents now receive their students' results, and it gives them by objective and the big areas of the assessment what the child's strengths were and where their areas of need and reinforcement are. So parents received that for EOCs earlier this summer, but for grades 3 through 8, they received it last Wednesday from TEA. And so for the last year. So they just received that and are just now starting to unpack that with their families.
Well, because I got the EOCs, but what I'm saying is all this information about the changes, explanations about it, none of that came with, it was just their scores and, it was just the results.
By objective, so they are going to focus on the standard that was assessed utilizing whatever the instrument or the test question was, but they're going to focus on what that standard was and what the child's learning achievement was for that standard. So they will receive more of it. Now, they have said they're also going to release new information coming out next month about the accountability system and the grades for schools to help parents understand that as well. We've not seen or previewed the materials yet, but they do say that those will be out next month to help explain for last year.
But nothing so far except results.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So up and coming, Mrs. Waller, just to follow up on that conversation, next month is when the Texas Education Agency is slated to finalize last year's accountability manual. And at the end of the month, they're expected to release the letter grade ratings and scores for schools and districts across the state for the prior year accountability system. So this infographic it's a little tiny on there, but it was online on social media, just kind of sharing and communicating what we've been in the boardroom discussing and the work of this board. To see all of this kind of transpire and develop, adopting the board resolution in April, asking basically for, we understand it all changed, that's fine, but let's just take a moment, let's do a hold harmless, and let's build from here rather than publishing scores that aren't really communicative of progress when you can do better and receive a lower letter grade. Right. There's a great deal of confusion still across the state. There are a lot of legislators and other organizations starting to now realize what's been transpiring and what's supposed to be coming through next month, so much so that there are even lawsuits pending now at this point about those ratings and that accountability system, and that the system is adopted after the year has closed and the next year is already opened. It's retroactive in the minds of those that are filing. And in true form, as it's projected, you can improve and improve and improve and still receive a lower rating. We saw improvement in terms of the percentages of students passing their end of course exams at the high school level. We saw areas that shined at elementary and across the board. But we also saw areas of concern where we see our highest absenteeism rates. And we know we have work to do, which is why we have the Sword of Success campaign for boosting attendance and reducing chronic absenteeism. We also are very thankful to the board and to the community for allowing us to hire teachers who are non-certified but are degreed and are working towards their certifications to serve as teachers given the nationwide teaching shortage. All of those things together, and again, as the board has been well aware, you can improve and still receive a full letter grade lower. And some of the calculations are so radically different that you'll wonder why one school has a higher rating and similar scores to another school. And it's all in how those calculations are done and all those groupings are done. So,
Dr. Ibarra, is it a true statement? We don't have the manual yet, the accountability to understand all this, but I'm hearing it's more than 100 pages long?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay.
It
so
is.
It's gonna
very
take them
extensive
100
and single.
pages to explain the changes that have just happened, and it's going to be September before we even get the manual to make sense of what just happened last year.
Yes, ma'am, that's absolutely correct. So, all of that to say, that's where we are today. We are out of the zone of uncertainty, which is great news. But I do want to assure the board that regardless of the zone of uncertainty or anything else that has come, the district had how the students responded on each question and what standard that was tied to. And so we're able to start looking at our curriculum and our resources to see where those hot spots are so that we could be responsive before the kids walk through the door this year. That's what our curriculum and instruction and teaching and learning team have been working on all summer, along with campus administrators, to reinforce those supports so that we were on track to meet the need and move forward.
So one of the concerns we had was not that the students didn't know the content, but the way they were being asked the question, they were not able to demonstrate their knowledge. How can we delve deeper into understanding those scenarios?
So one of the ways we can do that is we can run an item analysis by question type to see where our kids felt pretty strong on this type of question, technology enhanced question versus another, and then provide those supports at that grade level to reinforce that practice. We're very grateful that our current assessment systems allow us to create similar question types so our kids can practice.
So did we notice any of that?
We haven't done the full analysis. We have heard anecdotally, I think Mrs. Goodman actually mentioned earlier today, that the kids seem to perform fairly well on those, but we need to do it by grade level to see which seem to be the most at ease with it.
And the writing?
That continues to be an area of growth. It was very new to have those short constructive responses across other content areas, and that definitely is an area of reinforcement for all of our grades.
And just to remind people, what is our percentage of students who are English language learners?
Approximately 24%.
Exactly. So they are still expected to do the short and the long responses?
Yes, that is correct.
In English?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And how did our scores do overall? Is that
overall similar, but it's hard to compare. Again, it's tough to compare, but you're looking at percent of students meeting expectation, similar to the prior year, but there are definitely some areas where that we saw growth and it was different than in prior years. And there are areas, again, where we need to reinforce, where we saw higher levels, maybe at our secondary campuses, of absenteeism. We're coming back from that pandemic and still encouraging kids to attend. We saw areas that needed reinforcement and where certain grades levels tended to trend lower than, not the prior year, but just lower than the rest. And we want to continue to reinforce. We saw a lot of strength in elementary mathematics, much more so than in years prior. And so there's a lot of good things coming and happening and developing at each of these campuses. But there's still much to do.
But
There
I
wasn't a nosedive.
Well, so the
no.
cautionary tale is it's a completely different assessment.
Right.
So nosedive or no nosedive, it's like trying to compare apples and oranges.
But it's still something that we're going to have to explain to parents. Again, when
Yeah.
we're going with this rating that we know is going to be different, and we're telling them, well, it could go lower. And the first thing they asked was, did our scores go down? Did we,
Right.
and I understand what you're saying. You've got to know what you're comparing it to. But that's my question, I guess, is comparing it to whatever you can correlate. Are we doing okay? I mean, we're not. It's not
Can you
like,
go back to that slide?
Yes. This one right
That
here.
one.
So
All these things changed. So it makes it really impossible to do the correlation to past year. And so
Essentially,
they
the way-
still give you a score,
yes.
and it looks like, oh, we're comparing last year's score to this year's score. But when every item and the way the methodology is used to get to that score is different, it makes it impossible to say, did we do better this year than we did last year?
And I think if I can paraphrase something in here, I think it's easier probably on the student by student to look at. I mean, I would know what my student did last year, what their strengths and weaknesses were, and what they were, this year looking at the results. When those get tabulated and thrown into the machine, that all these calculations have changed in, and then get spit out into a single letter grade, it's impossible to compare.
But
So
even on the meets expectations, or what's the one above that?
Masters.
Masters expectations. I mean, even those are not the same anymore.
No, they're at different cut points altogether.
Right. Hence the reason, before they declared that, to remind everyone, they told us that it was a child likely passed, likely did not pass, or was in this zone of uncertainty. They couldn't tell us if it was meets or masters because they didn't know themselves at the state's level. So now that they've started to figure that out, we're starting to see where we stand. Another big thing about apples to apples and apples to oranges, in previous years, for example, I'll use writing as the example, we tested kids on their writing ability in 4th and 7th grade, and then when they got to English 1 and English 2. Well, now writing is on every single test, math, science, social studies. So comparing it from one year to the next is impossible. This is a benchmark year for us. This is ground zero.
And even TEA has said this is basically, we're establishing a baseline across the state right now. This is our new baseline. And so we look forward to how do we grow and improve from our new baseline, whatever it ends up being when they finalize that accountability manual. But to your point, Mr. Gonzalez, there absolutely were different grade levels and students and situations where we saw similar to similar performance. But there were some that were like, we don't quite understand how this test was scored. It looks a little different, but okay, here's what it was. And it probably has a lot to do with those new question types that was a little bit different for our students to experience this first year.
And we can go over all the methodology and differences, but when parents come to us and say, hey, are our scores lower? Yes, we need to explain this to them, but we also need to say, yes, they were lower. This is why. I just feel like we deflect and deflect and deflect, and I understand there's reasons why we can't compare them. But I don't want it, again, like I keep stressing, I don't want it to look like we're making excuses. If they fell, we need to be able to, or if they fell, not failed, fell, then we need to be able to explain why. But this is, a lot of times when you come in and you say, hey, my kid scored this last year, I kept them in BISD, and now they scored this, I don't want it to sound like an excuse, that we're making excuses. Why? Well, it's hard, even though, like I said, being here, I understand a lot more than I did being on the other side, but I want to make sure that we're clear to our parents, yes, if overall our scores fell, this is why, because that's what I get asked, so overall, are they falling? And I don't want to tell them, well, I don't want to be an attorney with them. I'd like to be able to say, hey, here's where we are, and explain that. So that was why I was asking that question.
Right. And what we'll do, and Barbara, you'll see a lot more of her in the next few months. Once they release our campus ratings and our district rating at the end of September, then we'll be able to stand and deliver that message to our parents. Today, if we said anything, it would be premature. Okay. We're doing a best guess right now. Every district is scrambling, trying to get into the head of the Texas Education Agency to figure out what their formula is. Now, the commissioner put us all on notice and said every district can expect a drop from like 8 to 12 points. And our best guess is we'll fall in that range. Everyone across the whole state of Texas, he's prepared that statement, put it in a video and all that. So we know that's coming. And that's why everyone is frustrated, because typically when they do this, when there's a change that's this radical, they do a hold harmless. And they say everyone can just catch their breath, figure it out,
See what happens.
and prepare the kids for that next year.
Or they change the names of the rating
Yes,
systems.
yes. We've all,
Something.
you know, it's very common to just, still get your results back, and then they blast out to the parents, no official rating. But this year, they said there's not a hold harmless, it counts and it's for real, and we're all pretty puzzled by that.
Well, I'm not puzzled at all. And if we look at timing of when things will be released, it coincides almost perfectly with the expected special session where they will focus on school finance. So, it's unfortunate that that's the situation we're in. And I don't want to make excuses, but I also want to be really clear about how our children are being evaluated. And it is absolutely not the same as that was previously. So we need to be very clear and open about that, and try to send the messaging that we are doing everything we can to support every child to grow and learn according to our state standards.
In years prior, just to echo you, Dr. Harlan, in years prior when there was a big change like this, we would do the hold harmless, we'd do all of those things. But the state would not only just change the names of the ratings, they would change the name of the assessment. It's that radical of a change. They would change, we went from TOS to TAX to STAR. There'd be a new version of the test so that it's very clear to everybody, hey, this is a new test. There are very different things about how students are being assessed under the new state system. And here's the new baseline. That hasn't happened either. And so I think that's causing additional confusion for parents, educators, and community members, because we're calling it the same test and we're giving it the same rating, but it is in no way the same thing as in prior years.
I would tell our teachers and staff that you're not going to hear too many sports analogies from me, but y'all scored another touchdown, but after the game was over, they moved the goal line. You didn't get the touchdown after all. Game's over, but,
Well, and I'd go as far to say that, it's like comparing football to baseball, right? Home runs versus goal lines. So it's just a different kind of sport, unfortunately.
Well, and a big thing is, and I think maybe, Mr. Gonzalez, if you're being asked, because the individual scores are in, we can't have a comparison because our district scores aren't in. And so we're at it's kind of a purgatory that we're in right now because the state's still trying to figure it out. Yet we're preparing everybody for what we pretty much think it's going to be like. And the best thing to do is try to focus parents on their own child right now, and then convince them that whatever our scores are, we're doing our best, and we want their child in Bryan ISD next year, no matter what.
Right, and we're not waiting for the ultimate score to arrive. We started before the school year even started working on how to best serve our students. We're not going to fall prey to this and become a victim. We don't want to use this as an excuse. The bar is high for excellence in our district, so we're going to do everything we can to position them for success now that we've got 1 year under our belt and we know where we stand. So we want our kids to reach their full potential, and we are committed to that. We will not fall prey to this and make excuses. We will rise up.
So Barbara, what are we going to do to help the parents understand when they go on to that portal to get their child's grade and they have confusion, maybe the minority parents that don't speak English or whatever? What are we going to do to help them understand when they look and they see that?
So for students who did not meet the approaches grade level measure on any assessment, we have, remember House Bill 4545? We have a meeting with the parent, we work with the parent, we devise an intervention plan with the student, and we work with the teacher to help execute that. The parent portal, is also in Spanish for the parents who utilize that system, but we're here as well. And we're absolutely committed to working with the parents in partnership. But it's not a one-size-fits-all. It is a kid-by-kid, individual assessment of how to best help that kid move forward. If there are 2 third graders, one needs this type of reinforcement and this one might need a different standard. That's why it was so important to have those standards tied to the questions this summer. So we knew for this particular child, these are the standards they struggled with. And so as we move into next year, it's going to be hard for that child to build maybe on a math skill that they didn't have the foundation for solidly in the prior year. And the teacher's going to have to do some small group instruction to do that scaffolding to support that needed learning to be able to build onto the current year grade level content. So to your question, it is very individualized. There's an individual plan for each kid, all of which, thank you to the board for approving Branching Minds in June. That's actually the system that we utilize to manage all of that complexity so that even if a student ends up moving during the school year from one campus to the next, the plan moves with them. And so we don't miss a beat on reinvestigating and wondering what they need. We know what's already in place, what interventions are and are not working, and we know how to produce results with that kid.
And going off of Ms. Benford's question, as far as our non-English speaking parents,
Mm-hmm.
so this is done at each campus level, correct?
Yes,
you have
sir.
to have. So do we have someone on each campus that is capable, if they call the campus, Ms. Carabine and I have had the same discussion, if a Spanish speaker calls, are they able to get routed to the right person? Do we have someone at each campus that is able? This is complex stuff. So
Absolutely.
We've done a pretty good job I know you don't know every campus. I'm asking
Every
a lot.
campus has Spanish-speaking staff members, but we also have a full bilingual team that is at the service to help, as well as a member of our communications team, several members, in fact.
Perfect.
So we are absolutely ready to help support wherever needed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just maybe end by saying that Texas is known for testing, has for a very long time. It's why the testing companies set up camp in our state. And that as things change, we figure it out and we perform. And we saw that year before last with our performance. So I have every confidence that we will figure this out too, but it just makes for drama when we have to figure out the new system and respond to that. So I want to commend all of our staff, our teachers, all the administrators, all the folks who are working behind the scenes to not only help our students, but to figure out the system and what's most needed. It's challenging times, and we appreciate all of their work.
Thank you, Dr. Harlan.
And I just want to add that, throughout all this, parents are important, obviously community members are important, but from the board standpoint, I think it's equally important that the teachers know that we're behind the success of the kid.
Yep.
Speaking personally, I could care less what the state decides to label a letter grade. If our students are successful, that's what we're looking for. And if the teacher is there working, we all have a game to figure out. It's a chess match sometimes, but at the end of the day, the only question that matters in my mind is that student better off for being in that class, being in our school that day? And if that answer is yes, throughout the school year, then we'll be successful.
Agreed. Agree completely.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks, Dr. Barr. We look forward to further discussion on
Hey,
this
guess what
topic.
next month's going to be?
Yeah.
New accountability manual. I'll be back.
I'll
So
be
sorry.
back. Yes. All right. And last, for our information items, we have our Director of Fine Arts, Pat Corbett, who will be giving us a fine arts update. We've been having different groups come in throughout the summer, and so we're glad it's your turn.
All right. Thank you. Let me give me a second for. All right, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give this very brief overview of some of the work our extremely talented and hardworking fine arts teachers did this past year. I'd like to emphasize that this is just scratches the surface of many of the work and accomplishments they did from last year, and it was very difficult to pick and choose what to talk about. I just tried to grab a few things that were representative of the work that our teachers did last year. All All right, first of all, I'd like to say congratulations to our visual arts teachers for earning the Texas Art Educators Association District of Distinction. This is the 4th consecutive year that we've earned this award, and the criteria for this award has a pretty extensive rubric that includes competitions, professional development for our teachers, community engagement, and many other things. And we have to score on 13 of the 14 criteria in order to win this or earn this award. So congratulations to our visual arts teachers. We'll be having a presentation at the Texas Art Educators Conference in November. So just some of the things that our visual arts teachers do. In May, we had, it was actually a very rainy day. It might have been the last day it rained here. It was early May. We had record-breaking attendance for our 21st annual Art Fest that we have. So every campus is represented, and we have just, it's just a fun few hours for the community to come in and parents and kids to come in and see their artwork on display. So our visual arts teachers, as I stated, one of the criteria for the District of Distinction is how are we involved in the community. So the manager of the Villa Maria HEB reached out to our visual arts team. She wanted a mural painted for their employees in the break room. So Miss Castillo at Bryan High School took some of her IB students and painted this mural at the store down at HEB. Some of the other things that we do is empty bowls for the Brazos Valley Food Bank that Alan Honda sponsors every year, and we had quite a few teachers out there this year. Competitions and other art things, events are part of our thing. This year we had 6 students qualify for the state vase competition. Our students, we'd cross-curricular activities for Black History Month. We had a student whose artwork was displayed at the Bob Bullock Museum in Austin, and then 3 of our teachers actually gave a presentation at the National Art Educators Conference this past April. And what was nice about that, after they got done, I got an email from a teacher from California who had attended and was just saying she was going to implement everything that our 3 teachers had talked about at that. So we have some pretty awesome visual art teachers. Our music program, this year we also earned the Best Communities for Music Education. This is the 3rd consecutive year we've earned this award. It's given by the National Association of Music Merchants. The criteria for this award is certified teachers teaching our students. How often do they have music? What is the funding like for our music and the facilities? So once again, I'd like to just thank the board that, our fine arts are very well supported by the school board, and our facilities are that we have facilities that are capable for our students to perform. As I said earlier, with our visual arts, our elementary teachers in some of their programs, they get with their campuses and do cross-curricular activities. And what an awesome way to learn lessons through music. And music can be a very powerful way for our students to learn and remember lessons. So when the opportunities present themselves, we like to try to do cross-curricular activities on campus. For our band program, the big instrument night is such a big night for our 5th graders. This is when they come, choose their instrument that they're going to be playing for 6th grade and hopefully for the next 7 years. All of our programs, we like to emphasize that our fine arts programs in the secondary are 7 years. It's not 6th grade band, it's Bryan ISD band, and it's a 7-year program. Same with our choirs, orchestras, dance, everything. So our bands had many superior ratings at UIL this past year. Our Wind Symphony got straight 1s for the first time in several years, and many of our other groups earned superior on stage, and a great accomplishment for our band programs and our students. All of our fine arts teachers try to involve our community and get out into the community, and I think our choir program does this as well as anybody. Our Rudder a cappella group has sung at the Brazos Valley Food Bank, and our Bryan High School Choir, of course, does the Feast of Carols every year in their Princess Tea Party. This year, we also had a Aka Fest, which we included our neighbors in College Station. So we had all 4 high school a cappella groups come and perform at Rudder High School. It was a great night of a cappella music, so get your calendars and save the date for this coming spring. Our orchestra program is a program that's been growing steadily over the last few years. We've added 200 students into our orchestra program over the last 10 years, and it's continuing to excel and get better. We had as they steadily improve, our SFA orchestra got sweepstakes, which is straight one superior ratings in concert and sight reading. And that was the first time in 32 years for our SFA orchestra. So congratulations to Mr. Wilson and everybody in the SFA orchestra. And our Bryan High School JV orchestra, which is, the better our JV groups get, the better our programs get. So for them to earn a superior rating for the first time in school history is a testament to the hard work that all of our orchestra teachers do. I don't want to ignore our others. These are just, as I said, these are just small little spotlights of things. Our mariachi program is relatively new to the district, but we've already experienced a lot of success. Our Los Vaquinos from Bryan High School have made the trip to the state UIL festival for the sixth straight year. They are also invited to perform at the opening ceremonies for the Texas Bandmasters Convention in July. And I'm very excited we've already started, is our Rudder High School Estrella de Plata, which is Silver Star in honor of General James Earl Rudder, who earned the Silver Star in World War II. So our middle school programs, which started this past year, the SFA Palominos and the Davila Los Tejanos are helping to feed, and I expect a lot more growth into our mariachi program. We were able to add another instructor this coming year, and that program continues to grow and serve our community well. Our theater program had many memorable performances this last year, but I think a standout was Rudder High School's production of Little Shop of Horrors. I hope everybody got a chance to see it. It was really something. It was one of the best productions that I've seen in a while. Our students also experienced success at the Texas Thespians competition, earning superior ratings for many of them. Our dance program at middle school dance is still a relatively new, but I would like to congratulate our middle school dance teachers. We have formed drill teams at both middle schools, the SFA Bronco Bells and the Davila Texans, and these programs are growing and they're feeding our high school programs. Both Rudder and Bryan High School drill teams will have the largest teams in school history on the field this fall. My department, we also manage both of our performing arts centers. We had over 500 events, performances, rehearsals, professional development sessions, outside groups. Both Rudder and the Bryan ISD Performing Arts Center are very, very busy on a continuous basis. Another thing I'm very proud of is that we use a lot of student workers. Last year we employed 12 students to help run lights and sound and usher. So they're learning technical skills in the booth, and they're learning how to deal with the public out in the foyer as they collect tickets and answer questions and show patrons to their seats. So once again, thank you, board, for allowing us to hire our students and give them real-world experience. One of the big things that we hosted last year was the Texas Association of Mariachi Educators state contest. We had 36 mariachi groups from around the state come. Most of them came up from the valley, and they bring lots and lots of people. It looked like the scene from the old movie Hoosiers with the bus and all the cars behind it. It was pretty spectacular. It was a long couple of days, but it flew by. And so, that was just a great opportunity for us and Bryan to be able to host that. Another thing is with the bond, the 2020 bond, we were able to upgrade the sound and lighting at the Rudder Performing Arts Center. It had just, over the 14, 15 years that the school and opened, it just became outdated. We had some speakers that were not functioning, and our lighting system was just out of date. So so thank you for that. It was, if you haven't been lately, it looks and sounds remarkably better. So why do we do this? We do this to instill a love of fine arts for our kids, and hopefully that they will continue to pursue fine arts. So one of the great things that we had last spring is Miss Allison at Rudder High School was able to organize a signing day. We do that so much for our athletes, most and deservedly so, but we had several fine arts students who had received scholarships to continue fine arts in college. I don't think all of them were actually majoring in fine arts, and I want to make that important. Students can get money to go to school to continue fine arts at the university without majoring in a fine arts. And so these students, we were able to celebrate them with their signing day. So that's just a brief high-level overview of where we were last year, and we're off to a great start this year. Our bands and drill teams, and we're out practicing, well before school started. I would just like to remind everybody, because I know it's on everybody's head, that we are very, very cognizant of the weather, and all of our directors have had training, and we've worked with Josh Woodall's training staff, and so we're keeping our students safe to the very, very best of our ability. So thank you very much for your time.
May I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Put you on the spot. So what are we doing or if anything, to get Rudder's band? I've just noticed their band seems small. I know there's only so much you can probably do.
Well, growing a band takes time.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's like we start band in sixth grade, our sixth grade. So as we're moving up, this year's band at Rudder High School should be bigger than last year. It is growing. Our new director and band staff in the Rudder vertical team. Another thing that's helping is we're really getting our vertical alignment, the Rayburn, Davila to Rudder lined up, and that's been a big help. Our directors are working better than ever. The Davila band directors are working, they're over there at Rudder working with that band, and so as we build those bridges, I fully expect it continue, but the Rudder band is growing. So
okay,
that's
great. I figured you were on it. I just wanted to, having a kid there and realize that that band is really small.
Yes, sir.
And I realize you can't drag people into band, but I was hoping that y'all were doing something lower
We're doing everything
funnel
we can.
them in.
Yes,
perfect. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Great work in fine arts. We're proud of fine arts in our district. All right. We will now move to our consent agenda. So if there's anything that you would like to pull off to discuss, we are happy to do that. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion
Dr. Harrell,
to approve. Yes.
I do have one question I would like to ask on the payments over $3,000. I don't know if Mr. Besaw would handle that or who would handle that. I had a question about the payments to legal fee payments. They were about $30,000 last month, so I know that's probably not a monthly thing. I just wanted some more information on that, please. If you happen to know. If not, I can get it later. I realize I'm putting you on the spot.
Come to the mic.
Yeah, I can pull specific information for those particular ones if you'd like, but or if you want a breakdown of
more. I guess my question is overall. If I know we spent $30,000 last month, I assume I don't remember seeing it in previous months, so I don't think we spend $30,000 every month, or do we? Okay. I don't remember seeing that.
I mean, it varies, and of course, we have legal fees for personnel matters, student matters, things that would be protected. We wouldn't discuss necessarily.
Right.
And then of course we have legal fees for construction and purchasing and general business things. Also attorney fees for delinquent tax collections. We have a firm that does an audit for us every year on our property values with the comptroller's office, and so they would, if they find something in our favor that would come back, they would receive a percentage of that. So there's a lot of different varieties of that, which I'd be happy to break that down for a whole year or however.
Yeah, I guess that
we do that from time to time and look at. We have had staff, legal staff on our payroll, and we've analyzed whether that's, more cost effective than.
Because that's exactly my question. So
Okay.
that's exactly my question. What point do we get?
Yeah.
I'm sure y'all are looking at it, but I would like to know. It just seems,
Okay.
I know it's hard to find good attorneys, but if we
Yeah.
could, if it's.
Yeah,
Well,
that has been something that the board has had in the past. We actually had an attorney for many years, and after the departure of our last attorney, we moved to a different model. And I believe the analysis is that it has not cost us more.
In the
fact,
past, when we've looked at it, it's been pretty close to a break. Even in a lot of situations, if it's a specialized matter, we would probably
Gotta
go
go out
outside.
anyway.
Perhaps anyway, but we have looked at it in the past, and we could
Okay,
sure do
I would just
that.
like to keep that on,
Yep.
just,
Mhm.
again, it's close, so, but I would like, if you could get some year-to-date, or even last year would be great. I'd like to take a look at that, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably wouldn't surprise you that that's been something I've always been interested in as well. And I do appreciate that you're saying that y'all are really trying to look at it. It's very difficult to evaluate the billing we get and see whether, okay, is all of this justified or not? But sometimes I think we need to get more information about exactly what did you do.
Exactly.
But I'm glad you asked the question because.
It's the attorneys that don't trust the other attorneys is the bottom line, so. Thank you. But that's it. Sorry, thank you.
do I hear a motion to approve all items listed on the consent agenda?
I move approval of all the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Dr. Davis and seconded by Ms. Benford. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. All right, the consent agenda is approved. Let me move down. We had a long consent agenda. All right. Our regular agenda first, we will go to business services. Consider approval of the budget for the year ending August 31, 2024 for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Food Service Fund, as we have already heard about in our public hearing.
Yes, ma'am. And I will just go through just a little brief summary of that. I believe you have the overall summary of the proposed budget attached to the agenda. And just go through a little bit of the same things that we talked about, the tax rate and the assumptions that we went through, the property value growth, the tax rate, and the property tax collection rate, we already said. And just some of the things that were included in this budget that had not been in the past were, of course, increases for the premiums and property insurance, increase in budgeted amounts for substitutes, salary and stipends for hard-to-fill positions, salary and general rate increases, which we talked about a couple of meetings, and decided to make that move to, show that we value our people and make sure that we can put the best staff in the classrooms and move forward with advancing our students to the best of our ability, even though that put us in a deficit budget situation. And one thing we'll watch the legislature to be sure what they do or don't do, and make adjustments as we need to as we go through that. But the budget itself is set or proposed. And you can see the local and intermediate sources of revenue for the general funds, about 94 million, and then the state programs is 69. The local includes the property tax, and that portion is actually lower than last year's was. And then, of course, all the expenditures in that for a total of 170 million, and leading us to the $4.6 million deficit budget.
Any questions for Mr. Besaw?
Yeah, I have a question on the summary of budgeted funds, line item 52, the security and monitoring. Does that, on page 16 of the, does that 1.8 million include both the SROs and the elementary or at least a projected cost for the additional security guards mandated by the House bill?
Right, that would not include the added security guards, because we were going to use the Donna Adams Foundation.
And that was going to be my follow-up question, is the Adams donation, so it's not reflected in either the general fund or in the expenditures?
Correct. That would be a special revenue fund, which we don't budget for those. We don't have those actually in. There is a line item to talk about how much those actually are on another sheet.
Okay.
I think they're approximately 28 million this year is what, but that would include your title, state donations and that.
Okay, because, I mean, one of those is, let's see. Let's see that. Because we don't need to lose sight of that number, because, I mean, we certainly appreciate the Adams family and their donation, and if that continues, great, but if not, we're still going to have to pick up, and we're going to have to pick that up at some point in time.
Yes, sir.
And so it's important to know that the bulk of that reflects the SROs, I'm assuming, the SRO contract.
Yes.
Which was, I know, a little bit over $1 million.
Yes, sir.
So it's.
Yeah, I believe that's SRO plus what we have to pay the group that many of our SROs subcontract for when we have like events and those kind of things, and we have to have security.
Right.
And Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, the state gives us an allotment of money dedicated to safety and security. This year, they rounded it up and gave us an additional 28 cents per student to hit $10.
Windfall, big windfall.
Windfall, and then they did give us $15,000 per campus to supplement. It is not enough money to cover the SROs or the armed guards that we're now required to have.
Right. The estimated allotment on that is, as it sits right now, is about $505,000. So the SRO contract, as Mr. McCall said, is a little over $1 million, and then the extra security guards at the elementary is estimated to be around $775,000, somewhere in that. So just those two alone,
Right.
far outweigh.
And it may be good for the board to have just as either a follow-up or whether it's in the board meeting or whether it's just a follow-up in a note somewhere. But, you know, the three big, the armed security guards mandated by House bill, the door jams security measure, and the maps, and how much those three were total versus the Don Adams, you know, how much that $1 million donation covered, covered that.
I believe I've seen that. I think Ms. Martin in our office has already put that together, so I can sure get that for you. Yes, sir.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Any other questions about the budget? Which your attachment in the agenda has a 3-page overview, and then we have the lengthy 30-page document in front of us. Not quite 30 pages, yeah.
Dr. Harlan, I move approval of the recommended budget for the year ending August 31st, 2024 for the general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. McCall. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Thank you. We will now consider approval of a resolution setting the tax rate for 2023 for the Bryan Independent School District. Again, Mr. Besaw.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So the order that we do this is how we adopt the budget, and then we set the rate to support that budget. Although it's kind of an oddity because the state actually sets our rate now. So I mean, it's but that's how it goes.
We don't set the rate, we just have to approve it.
Correct. And so, at this point, we go through, we got our values, July 25th, we submit them to the state. They put all the districts together, and then they set a ceiling and a floor, and come back with your rate. If you're above the ceiling, you get the ceiling. If you're below the floor, you get the floor. So we're essentially at the floor, but, also with our neighbors to the south as well. And so then we have the golden pennies, as they're called, for the Tier 2 enrichment. So the floor this year was 0.6192 for the maintenance and operations rate, plus the 6 pennies. So our rate for the maintenance and operations would be 0.6792. And then for the purposes of the principal and interest on our debt service fund, we're holding at the 0.27 for a total rate of 0.9492 for the 23 tax rate. And that, I would mention, that's just a little over 19 cents less than our last year's tax rate, which, as I mentioned, will generate less revenue for the district than the prior year.
So I've sort of just assumed that we really were just, as was already said, basically they set the rate for us. But do we have is there a difference between the floor and the ceiling for our M&O?
There's, for us,
Yeah.
perhaps? Yes, but any increase that we would do would require a tax ratification election. You'd have to go to the voters.
Okay, but yeah, we have no flexibility other than going through it.
TRE.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of the property tax rate for 2023 to be set by the attached resolution at $0.6792 for maintenance and operations and $0.270 for debt services, for a total tax rate of $0.9492 per $100 of valuation as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. McCall, seconded by Dr. Davis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. All right, motion is approved. And then part 3, consider approval of a resolution for the commitment of fund balance for the year ending August 31, 2023. Again, Mr. Besaw.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So this is an annual process that we go through to evaluate our fund balance portion that's set aside or assigned. And these items they vary in type and why we do them. You can see on there we have technology, which is for emergency technology expenditures. We have used that recently. When COVID came, we used that to be able to step out and move to remote learning without any delay. Insurance deductibles, at one point we've raised the insurance deductibles somewhat, and then set aside some fund balance to cover those if we had to. We have maintenance projects, be similar to the technology. If something were to be damaged and needed immediate repair, we have that capability that we could do. And then the group benefits risk pool, just funding for any negative balances. And I just mentioned on the resolution to commit the fund balance, it states on there, but we're self-insured district for the group benefits risk pool, which is our health insurance, and then the workers' comp fund. So technically, we're committed to 100% of that purpose. We can't actually we're not supposed to have a negative fund balance in those. We're supposed to cover that with the general fund. At this point, I also, I believe I attached a chart that shows just our history with the general fund balance and the group benefits risk pool. And as we can see from 12 and 13 and 14, we had a fairly healthy fund balance. And as the things increased, the fund balance went down. As we've gone through the years, we've adjusted and made changes. Recently, we made some pretty significant, over the last few years, changes in the planned premiums and structure of what's covered and deductibles and those kind of things. but and ran very close to running it at a zero neutral fund balance. But in 21, when COVID hit, we got hit. We were able to transfer some ESSER funds to cover any COVID-related, but just the medical area in general got hit pretty hard. And so we've transferred, I believe, 2 years ago, we transferred $3 million. Last year, we've transferred 2.5 to shore that up. And when we project this year, projecting through the end of the year, and this runs from December, or from January 1 to December is the plan year. So we're projecting, I think, June numbers at this point, so we're projecting the next 6 months. But we believe it'll come in pretty close to even. But we did start the year with an $800,000 negative balance. So we feel that it'd be warranted to transfer the $1 million that we have there, and then, of course, replace it. That'll then come back up. We'll talk about that a little more. It'll be on the amendment that's coming up. But that would be our recommendation, would be to transfer that to make sure we stay even and don't fall behind with that again. If we can get that caught up so where we have a fund balance and maintain a good, strong, healthy plan.
And just as a reminder, that health plan, because we are self-insured, is a great benefit to our employees. Their costs are much reduced compared to if they were with TRS or some other group.
Yeah, there are some stories about how difficult that's been for some of the districts that went off of TRS when they gave that option the year before last. So we'd like to maintain our plan and stay with it. I think it is a benefit to our employees, and you know, that's one of the ways that we can help them. So we are very strong in that.
I move approval of the attached resolution committing fund balance for the year ending August 31st, 2023 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Stasny, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And I think last but not least is consider approval of a budget amendment for the general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund for the year ended August 31, 2023.
Yes, thank you. This is the will be the final adjustment for the 22-23 fiscal year, and we bring forward some adjustments this year. Of course, we started with a $4.5 million negative budget. We've made some of those up, and we'll end up better than that. I don't believe we'll get to zero this year, but some of the reasons when we adjust the budget or do an amendment, this year, for example, investment earnings, short-term interest rates just were skyrocketed, and so we didn't realize that at the beginning of the year that they would be anywhere near that. We're getting on our tax pool money, which is daily money, we're getting right now, or just recently, I don't know if today's was, but we were getting 5%. I mean, that's crazy. So, you know, money that's just sitting there that we have available to pay bills, we're getting 5%. There's no way we really could have planned for that. So, I mean, that adds a little over $2 million to our budget. Another thing that happened during this year at least was the teacher incentive allotment. When we started the year, we weren't sure if our plan was I think we had it was going to make, but we didn't know if we had any teachers would qualify, if it would even come in. So, there's no way to really build that money in. And so in February, we found out we did have a lot of teachers that qualified for that, which is a great thing. But so that revenue coming in then is, which is another weirdness, we won't get that money until actually after the end of the fiscal year. It'll come with settle up, as they call it. Now, we made the payments in June because that's what our plan called for, so the teachers received their funds, which really then, I guess, is a loan from fund balance for that. But that's how TEA set it up. They did set it so that it's TRS eligible, and that's a very good thing. But those kind of things are what it's adjusted for. So that's $2.3 million almost right there. There's a $500,000 adjustment for ADA. I think our ADA will be a little bit more than we anticipated at the beginning of the year. And then ESSER funds that we were able to transfer back. And another area that we could use ESSER was in the custodial for sanitizing and cleansing, and those kind of things we're allowed to transfer some into that. Of course, I mentioned the TIA payouts. TRS on behalf as well was actually more. That's the portion that gets put in because of the extra funding, extra pay that the teachers receive. Then that creates the need for the retirement plan to be funded. And so that's an addition. That's a revenue neutral. So that's on both sides. That's a revenue and an expenditure on our side. There's other things that just miscellaneous transfers to realign some budgets with different functions. But those are some of the large items that we're adjusting for at this time. And that should bring us into, with the $1 million transferred to the group benefits, that'll leave us probably about $1.7 million, still negative. And I did mention before in the meeting, we have an increase in the accrual for payroll, which is about $1.2 million, which is really just a book entry. It just means people work 3 more days this year, in this fiscal year, than they will in the next year. So it could very likely flip back next year. That's just an entry that the auditors will make us book at the end of the year, so it matches the revenue with the expenditures and those kind of things.
Well, I'm glad we have you to do that accounting.
Well said, absolutely.
I took accounting in college. I only had one course, thank goodness. Thank you for what you do, Mr. Bethal.
Thank you.
Any questions about the budget amendment?
I move approval of the budget amendment for the general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund for the year ending August 31st, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. McCall, seconded by Ms. Waller. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion is approved. And continuing on, one more with business services. Discussion and consideration of an order authorizing the issuance of $55 million Bryan ISD School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds Series 2023 and resolving other matters incident and related thereto. Sounds fun.
Yeah, I was going to say the accounting or the legal. I don't know.
Yeah.
See, only you would have a smile on your face after somebody reads that sentence.
Yeah, it's what I do. So that's, some people like English. I like numbers, I mean, that's.
It's all job security, sir.
It's right. I guess so.
We're glad you like it.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. This is the sale of the remaining $55 million of the bonds that were approved back in 2020. I have Mr. Paul Jason here from Specialized Public Finances, Mr. Stephen Adams' partner. I was going to invite him up just to kind of go over the process and the sale that the bid that we did today and the numbers and just kind of where that all plays out.
Thank you, Kevin. You've been busy tonight. So, good evening, Paul Jason with Specialized Public Finance. We serve as financial advisor to the district. I'll move on to page 2. Just want to give you a quick summary. We took bids, like Kevin mentioned, on the last installment of the 2020 authorization. Kevin watched the bids come in. We received 7 bids. That's, a testament to the credit quality of the district. Mr. McCall mentioned in their Finance Committee, they talked about the credit ratings. Your underlying rating is still important. Your AA category from both Fitch and S&P. The bond structure is 25 years. This is consistent with your previous voter-approved debt. And then as far as the rate, it was 4.23%. That's a fixed rate for the life of this transaction. These will be callable in around 9.5 years, so 215 of 33. These bonds could be callable. At the time of the 2020 election, it was a 25.5-cent target for the INS rate. So the district's been able to sell both installments of the debt, lower the tax rate a 0.5 cent. I know that's pretty insignificant when Kevin was referring to the other M&O rate. But it also allowed the district to pay off roughly $8.6 million in debt. That saved about $2.4 million in interest by keeping that tax rate around 27 cents. As far as the closing is anticipated to occur September 20th, and this is when proceeds will be available, so Mr. Besaw can start paying invoices on construction. As far as the bid summary, this is on page 2. 7 bids. Frost Bank was the winning bidder out of San Antonio. You can see the number of other participants. We recommend competitively bidding because it's really hard in a volatile market that we're in to pick the right underwriter. If you were to pick one of these other underwriters, that's most likely the rate you would have received. For an issue this size, 1 basis point can cost around $32,000, and so 10 basis points is pretty significant. So the winning bidder, we appreciate the bid by Frost Bank and the other participants, broker-dealers, in the competitive bid process today. The next page is the tax rate model. Apologize for all the numbers. We can quickly sum this up. All the assumptions that Mr. Besaw put into this, what he knows today from the legislative updates with hold harmless and the homestead piece, this is all structured with your current debt, projected growth of your tax base to get to a 27-cent tax rate this year and next year. And then on the far right column, you could see that tax rate, and I'm just referring to the INS rate, drops off pretty significantly. This is a graph of your INS rate. These are 2 graphs basically overlaid. We overlay your debt service and your INS rate. The blue line is the 27 cents. You can see the red line is your projected INS rate, and then the current debt is in the gray, which might be hard to see, but you can see a lot of the principal is paid off. So roughly half of your debt is paid off the next 2 years on this bond issue, and that's by keeping the INS rate at 27 cents. Page 5 is more for Mr. Besaw, knowing when his first payment's going to be 2/15 of 24, and this is just a partial schedule of the semi-annual payments. You can see again the 2 big payments coming up, 2/15 of 24 and 25. Roughly half your bond issue paid off in those 2 years from a principal standpoint. Page 6, sources and uses. So we sold just under $54 million in debt. The last installment, investors bid a premium. We put in the bid specs. We wanted to cover all the cost of issuance. So you truly net the $55 million that was authorized by voters. We did have a small little cleanup from the 2002 referendum. There's just under 2,000 that's available from that referendum. So that's being exhausted with this bond issue as well. Timeline, I know this process started a long time ago, but we're here tonight for this board to consider the order authorizing the last installment of the bond issue. And if we vote to move forward, the closing is set for September 20th. This is just a quick chart to show where rates are today. The red line is the current rates. The blue line is the average, so you can see we're still below average. If we go back to 1960, I know there's been a lot of talk. It's a rising rate environment. At least you're earning a little bit on your investments. First time since 2008 that you've seen these kind of short-term investment returns. So it's still a decent time to borrow money. We would recommend, this is just a recommendation from our firm, that you would award to Frost Bank the 2023 bonds. We want to thank the district and staff for all your help, and our team appreciates the opportunity to work with the district again. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? No?
That's me. I don't know enough.
All right.
No
I
questions?
move to adopt the order providing for the issuance of $55 million in principal amount of Bryan Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bond, Series 2023, and resolving other matters incident and related thereto as presented.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Dr. Davis, seconded by Mr. McCall. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. All right, motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Besaw. Thank you very much for the presentation. All right, we will now move to teaching and learning. Discuss and consider approval of amendments to the District of Innovation Local Innovation Plan. Dr. Ibarra.
Thank you, Dr. Harlan. We're bringing to you this evening a possible amendment to our District of Innovation Local Innovation Plan. We have some new legislation that was passed this session that goes into effect on September the 1st. And there's some complexities to it. There's a good spirit behind that legislation, but we feel like we can do things a little differently to help support our students. So Dr. Merrill is going to also join me as part of school leadership to amend the District of Innovation Local Innovation Plan. We have just a few steps to go through. First, we must convene that committee, the DOI committee, and we must also convene the district's Educational Improvement Committee, also known as the DEIC. Those organizations are both comprised of a majority of teachers, but also include community, parent members, and business representatives from throughout the community. If those two groups are in agreement with the proposed innovation and the amendment, then we bring it to the Board of Trustees for discussion and consideration. So Dr. Merrill and I worked last week with the two committees. They did approve this proposed innovation that we're going to be discussing tonight unanimously and asked that we bring it to you for consideration. Okay, so the 88th legislature passed Senate Bill 2428. And they did this in the spirit to help schools, but with all things, sometimes that's a little more complex than on the surface. So we have a number of community-wide agencies that support our students in our community with vape prevention and e-cigarette use. You'll see that is a national, state, local trend. You're seeing it across the board. In the spirit of that, most school districts don't have the testing abilities on site to test vapes, sorry, it's later. Our volunteers in public schools are fantastic. Please don't test them. They don't need assessments. They don't need it. They are fantastic people. They are wonderful. Dr. Merrill, maybe you should talk. And we know that I don't say that often, do I? No, I don't.
Is this like the first week of school or something?
It might be. It might be. At any rate, this legislation requires the mandatory placement of any student found with an e-cigarette, regardless of its contents, nicotine or otherwise, to be placed at the DAEP. That cannot be, when it says mandatory, it means exactly that. It's no longer the discretion of the school district. If you have a vape, if it's empty, if it has nicotine, it's a required placement at DAEP. It does allow a provision for if the DAEP is at capacity, that student could remain on site in an in-school suspension situation until a seat became available. It also does a really good thing, and here's the really good thing of this legislation. It requires TEA to develop a program to help students and to help students with substance abuse and to have them go through that course and show proficiency in that learning. So Dr. Merrill's going to talk a little bit about what we've already had in place for the past year, and he's also going to tell you a little bit more about how the e-cigarette for nicotine doesn't have the same consequence if you have a cigarette, a traditional one. Dr. Merrill.
Absolutely, yeah. So ironically enough, a pack of cigarettes would get you simply probably a conversation a couple days in DMC. Parents would come up for a conference. But an e-cigarette would get you a mandatory placement at DAP. So those two, they don't really match, to be completely honest with you. And so there really are two different types of vapes. One obviously contains nicotine, which is what we're talking about today in the proposal, and then one contains THC, which is a completely different substance. And so when you read up there that the TEA is going to develop a program, I'm very, very proud of the comprehensive program that we started really over a year ago. And tonight is another example of our partnership with BV CASA. So while we were in the boardroom, right down the room, and our PD was our Sobering Facts. And we held that really and truly almost every week, starting about the third week of school last year. BV CASA is a wonderful partner. We brought them into the boardroom, I guess maybe 2 or 3 months ago. We honored them with one of our Essential 8, Tiger and Tasha. They just are incredible individuals and have been very generous to our district. They live in our district, their kids attend our district, and so just as a refresher, anyone that's caught with THC, not with nicotine, but with THC, they're obviously assigned to DAEP. And during that time, they are allowed to go to a Sobering Facts night meeting where their parents and the students attend, and that is at a reduction of the total number of days. And then with Good and Perfect as well, they're able to go back to the campus. Now, Mr. Corbett was up here tonight talking about the wonderful things having to do with fine arts. And it would be a complete tragedy to think about the students that would be placed there, not only for obviously THC, which is controlled substance. Students are arrested if they're caught on campus for that in many cases. They are tested immediately on campus, so we are able to differentiate between nicotine and THC. But let's just say, for instance, that we implemented the law as it's written for nicotine. All of the wonderful programs that Pat talked about would become in jeopardy. And then I think next month we're going to be talking about CTE, and many of the things that our kids need would be taken out of there. So for example, again, if they were in cosmetology, that course sequence would have to stop. The length of placement would almost render that entire field of study just null and void. They would have to go into a different class. And so certifications, CCMR, which we depend on for accountability, really their livelihood, to be completely honest with you, in a lot of cases would be in jeopardy. And so we have no problem educating parents. We had our first annual anti-vaping conference that was led by the ambassadors and our VCOT. And we had a wonderful session that was up here, and you'll see many things that came out of that. And so we have a comprehensive plan. I was at SFA today, and in the pack, they were talking about vapes. We were talking about the differences between nicotine and THC. We had an officer that is scheduled to be in all of our secondary opportunities to talk about not only that, but anything else kind of criminally related. And so just talked about the need to not have this be a part of your life, the healthy choices, and what will exactly happen. And so we hit it early and often. We hit it in the classrooms through our lessons. We hit it in our class assemblies. We do it over announcements. We do it if we catch a student in the parent conferences, and then we do it through sobering facts. And so really what we're asking today is for you to differentiate between nicotine and THC. THC, we have a really robust plan, but for nicotine, we feel like as the state is identifying it really is an epidemic. We do feel like it's an epidemic, but we also feel like we're ahead of the curve. When we went to a state conference this summer, myself and Dr. Karen Casper and a few other people from MC Harris and DAP, we talked about what we're doing to try to address this very thing. And when we got done, many people from across the state walked up and said, how are you able to accomplish what all you're doing? And, to be completely honest with you, it's the proactive approach that the board allowed us to do this, as well as BV CASA. Those two relationships right there allowed us to step in an educational way instead of a punitive way where it was just the effects of a vape would be really beyond measure, and the ripple effects would be honestly lifelong.
That was much better than my intro. Thank you, Dr. Merrill.
So just for verification purposes, though, what you're saying about fine arts is that there are not fine arts opportunities
No, sir.
in DAEP.
They're not.
Not that more people in fine arts
Nope.
have vapes, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
gonna-
We're not catching a
in fact,
ton of kids in fine arts with
program,
vapes,
it's
no,
gonna
sir.
affect the students.
We're seeing it across the board. I appreciate that. And they're not just kids in CTE, they really are just kids.
Right.
And those opportunities that our kids are in are what would become in jeopardy, whether it's fine arts, CTE, or really just anything else.
Sports,
Exactly.
FFA.
And you take them out for 5 to 15 to 30 days, and all of a sudden you're talking about trying to come back in. Where was I in the marching band? Where was I in the concert? Where was I in the play? Where was I in cosmetology? And, I don't want them to use it. We stood up today and we had officers talking about it. I talked about it. The principal talked about it. We absolutely, health advisories. We have everything going on. They're kids. And so we don't want to affect, 18, 19, 20-year-olds in what they're doing. And so if at all possible, we're very, very thankful that we're a district of innovation, that we can bring this type of thing. I can tell you it was unequivocally unanimous when we met with the committees. They completely understand it. They recognize that you have to have a plan and that Bryan ISD has a plan.
Dr. Merrill, would you elaborate just a moment more about the effort from our faith-based leaders sponsoring the proactive
Yes, ma'am.
parent
Absolutely.
awareness?
So we did attend wonderful, it was a community outreach where we talked about all of those things that are really unhealthy in our community. We had our pastors there. We had our local representatives, our district attorney, Jarvis Parsons. We had assistant ADAs, police officers, just community. Anyone and everyone that was having basically their heart and mind loves Bryan and was talking about it. And out of that, we basically made assurances that we would continue it, that we would pick this up and we would host it in our own schools to be able to talk to the parents, because parents just don't know. They see the vape, and the reality is the contents of it, in some cases, they're not aware. Is it nicotine or is it THC? In other cases, they may. And so really talking to the kids and talking about the negative health impacts that these have on their body is not only taking place, but also we need to get out in front of the parents so that they're able to understand it, because sometimes they see it and they think it's a thumb drive, or they think it's a remote, or they think it has something to do with a video game. They don't realize that in there is a controlled substance, and it can really have negative effects.
And I think it's important. I know I'm glad you brought up about the Orchestra of the Fine Arts and sports and everything else, but this is also really hard on just regular students that don't have anything to be out of the classroom that long.
Plug back into an IB course or an AP course and try to figure out exactly what I've missed, because that we can send work and we do, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
So it's not the same.
We're putting them behind, and
we are.
I think as we've discussed, it's just putting them in jeopardy over and over again. And I really appreciate you guys working on, all of us coming up on a solution.
Thank you.
Because we don't want to let everybody run rampant.
No.
But we've also got to be reasonable, and I really appreciate everybody looking at the reasonableness of this.
And you
Feels
may
like
have hit on this already, but we want to have a really good DAEP program. And if you have a bunch of kids in there that really don't need to be there, I don't see how we're going to serve the ones that
We're
need to be
not.
there.
No, sir, we're not. And if you've got students sitting over there that don't really need to be over there, but at the same time, we need to make sure that there's an education going on for them and their parents so that they don't repeat the behavior. We don't have a high level of recidivism. We didn't know when we started BB Casa. We said, well, let's try it once. We'll get a month scheduled out, and let's see if they show up. And man, they showed up. Over 95% attendance. And the feedback that we got from the parents and the students was just fairly remarkable, to be honest. They were very appreciative. They didn't hesitate to come. We didn't have a difficult time at all. We hosted multiple ones over the summer. They get motivated. They don't want to start the school year, right, at DAP. And so we provided multiple opportunities in July and in August. And we didn't want to just reward them for nothing, right? We didn't want to reward them for sitting home. So we had Karen, Dr. Casper, and her staff. We just offered a bunch to be able to hold them accountable, but also to educate them so we could start whatever year on their home campus. And I appreciate the campus principals and assistant principals working with us and understanding how important that is to not start 7 days at DAP and then coming at Bryan High or Rudder or Davila. That's not a good way to start your junior year or whatever year. So absolutely, it affects all kinds of kids.
Thank you.
And I think it's a case where the punishment was going to create additional barriers, as well as the numbers. I mean, if you looked at the numbers of students, I wonder how districts will manage that if they're not a district of innovation.
I don't know.
Well, and one thing, as we were talking with the DOI committee, our district is unique in that we have a wonderful partnership with our local police department. And because they're on site and because they partner with our schools, they're able to test the vape for its contents. Many other districts across the state don't have that ability. So truly in an effort to help those districts when they couldn't decide what was in it, they wanted to make sure kids who were utilizing THC or other controlled substances did have appropriate consequences, but they didn't know it was in the vape. So they couldn't prove it, then they didn't go. But because we, again, have that great partnership, we're able to make that distinction between a nicotine vape and something that's much more serious. So we still need to work with them, we still need to work with the partner and with the parent, but the proactive approach, as Dr. Merrill has structured, is so much more impactful.
What is, it says remaining on campus with appropriate consequences. What are we going to take to make sure we don't have a disparity between one campus to the other? Do we have guidelines? I'm sure we have guidelines.
We do have guidelines. So we got with the principals ahead of time. So if this is approved tonight, we actually have like a range of days that they're able to assign. So one isn't going 2 days and the other's going 20. We also bought Ripple Effects, which is an online social emotional learning platform. So when students are assigned, they'll be given a playlist. And on that playlist, specifically for vaping, anti-vaping, it will be just a playlist that they're able to watch.
That should be enough of a
yeah, I don't want to do that twice, right? Yeah, exactly.
A good deterrent right there.
I want to thank the team for coming out to that meeting, explaining to the parents.
It was good.
And the kids that were there. It was a great meeting, and a lot of people called me after that because they were glad to hear it firsthand from the district and not have to hear it from the news or social media. They got it firsthand because some of them didn't even know, that mom doesn't vape, but they go over to dad's house and somebody in that house vapes. She didn't even know what it looked like, but now they know what to what you look for, and they didn't even think about elementary kid taking it to school, what the consequences can be. So we did a very good job of talking to them that day, presenting. There was a lot of kids there that the officers talked to them, staff talked to the kids. So I think it's going to be positive.
Thank you for saying that, and we appreciate you being there that day. We plan to replicate that throughout the year to educate our parents so they know what to look for, because this whole situation came on full steam ahead, and it is turning into an epidemic. And sadly, they market the devices to children. You can see them cotton candy flavor and all that. It's really disheartening. So I think if we can get ahead of it and prevent it, that's the key. Education is the key to combating this.
I noticed a billboard on my way into work today that had a new Bryan ISD tagline slogan, and I don't remember it exactly, but the community, come be a part of our community. And some of these programs that are described throughout this, from the secondary kind of student-led kind of summit to our partnerships within the community that just continue to grow, it really feels like that community slogan is catching up with the programs that we're already seeing in place, and it's really becoming a community and a partnership within the district.
It's awesome.
It's exciting to see.
Thank you for all you are doing, and we know we can continue to do more to support our families and our students.
Dr. Harlan, I move approval of the District of Innovation Local Innovation Plan as presented.
Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. Stasny. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
Thank you all.
Motion is approved. All right, the board will now convene in closed session for Texas Government Code Chapter 551.074 and 551.0821. The time is now 8:06 p.m.
I thought that's what y'all did anyway. That's what I told everybody y'all did. I've been hanging my hat on that a long time.
Reverend Hill, thank you for those
Everything is here and signed, though not with a blue pen. I hope that's not a problem. Okay, this we did with a blue pen. But I had questions about these, so I can talk to you about them in just a moment. I wasn't sure what's not clear.
I can't believe I missed that thing at Ryder. I didn't
It's just some of this.
I didn't even know about that.
I'm not sure who is that. Is that me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, y'all. Let me finish. And then this one doesn't say. And then this, I wasn't sure if I needed to sign that.
Do you still
This is my stack. Where? Right here?
This one.
That's print, just a sign. Okay. Okay. Oh, got it. Thank you. Okay.
I like to have fun in my mind, okay?
I am.
Oops, here in the-
All right. The board reconvened in open session at 8:57 PM. No action was taken in closed session. There being no further business, the meeting is now adjourned.
Done by 9. Good job. Yeah, 2 points.